Oh, I always love to say this. Good morning, Redbourn. I'm Simon Zegro, and I welcome you all to another Active in Redbourn weekly call. Please excuse my voice. As I was just saying before we started, I always seem to get a slight sore throat just for the duration of this call, and then the minute the call finishes, it goes. I don't know what that's all about. It's a bit weird, but excuse my voice. It's nothing like as bad as it sounds. And what a beautiful early autumn day it is. It's absolutely stunningly gorgeous. And for that reason, I encourage everyone to read To Autumn by John Keats, which many people, myself included, believe is the most perfect poem in the English language. Really, really beautiful poem, and I suggest you all read that one if you can. Our technical team is back today, so this should now be live on the Redbourn Facebook page and afterwards both there and on our website. And as in previous weeks, everyone bar today's speakers is on mute, so you can make as much noise as you like. And as always, I would like to thank all the people that have donated to keep the calls free of charge for listeners over the last few months. Now, on a few occasions recently, we've overrun a little bit, and as I was just discussing with today's guests, we always plan to keep these calls to about half an hour. And the added problem that gives us is that our second guest not only has longer to wait and less time on the call. So today is an experiment. We have just the one guest, and it's a wonderful guest, as you'll find out in a minute, and of course the wonderful Will, who will give us his thought for the week. I think we did publicise the fact that Colin and Debbie from the Cricketers would be on the call today. We'll find another slot for those guys at a future date. So we have the wonderful Celine Powell on the call today, who initiated the volunteering group. So good morning, Celine.
Good morning, Simon.
Good morning. So I hope you don't mind waiting a little bit because Will's got a very exciting Zoom call he has to shoot off to. So Will's going to go first today. So good morning to you, Will.
Good morning, Simon. Good to be here.
Thank you. And how are you today?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, very well. Always happier when the sun's shining, like many others. Yeah, gorgeous morning. I love this time of year. Yeah, just stunning.
And I think you did well on your homework, I think, this week.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, you set me a task where that quote had come from last week. So I found, well, at least the first half of that quote said you should, about the approach to gardening. It comes from William Kent, the 18th century architect and garden designer. He of sort of early Georgian Britain. He was instrumental in introducing the Palladian style, influence from the Italian architecture into this country and so on. Certainly the first bit of the quote. I don't know about the bit that had been added on the end. I can't find any attribution for that at all. So maybe somebody else kind of liked the first bit and added their own touch to it at the end about sort of and enjoying it as if it's your last day. I'm not sure that was originally William Kent, but I haven't found out who added that. So that's the best I can do for you, Simon. I hope that it's a sort of a 6.5 out of 10 answer, I think. But
well, I was going to run it to an algorithm, but I think
you get marked down to a 6.
Anyway, you've got a Zoom call, I think an important Zoom call to do, so I think you're up first today, so we'll look forward to hearing from you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I don't know if you were out on the Common on Sunday afternoon, but if you were, you would have seen the cricket match being played. This was no lazy knockabout or local friendly, but one of the most gripping amateur games I've ever had the privilege to watch, along with several hundred others who lined the entire perimeter of the boundary, as captivated as they were socially distanced. This was Redbourn playing in the quarter-final of the National Village Cup. In a nail-biting finish, Redbourn put their bodies on the line, fielded like demons to defend a low total, and narrowly came out victorious in the last over by just 5 runs. Their reward is a trip down to Somerset this Sunday for a semi-final with the greatest prize at stake. But because it's actually the first time they've ever entered. The rules up until now have precluded any settlement with a population over 5,000 people. But it's different this year. The rules have changed and Redbourn have entered and are proving what we already knew, that this is the best village anyone could ever wish to live in. But after the excitement died down on Sunday, it did leave me asking, well, if the numbers have changed in the competition, what exactly makes a village? Well, technically, a village is distinguished from a town in that the following criteria apply. A village should not have a regular agricultural market, although today such markets are uncommon, even in settlements which are clearly now towns. Secondly, a village does not have a town hall nor a mayor. Thirdly, if a village is the principal settlement of a civil parish, then any administrative body that administers it at a parish level should be called a parish council or parish meeting, and not a town council or city council. And finally, there should be clear green belts or open fields surrounding its parish borders. However, this may not be applicable in urbanised villages. Well, we know all about the threat of that, don't we? Well, that's the technical stuff. But what are some of the things that make for a good village? The quintessential chocolate box village conjures visions of fetes on long summer afternoons, cosy cottages overlooking a well-kept village green dotted with cricketers, a cosy pub proudly serving the local brew, and scenery that has all the bucolic charm of a hardy novel. But what constitutes the perfect English village is largely subjective. Some prefer a friendly local shop or village hall within walking distance, while for others, a quaint country church or an active local community, an absolute must. An estate agent was asked about the pros and cons of buying a home in a village, and he said this: if you asked a townie to describe their idea of a quintessential village, they'd probably mention historic churches, duck ponds and country pubs. But the reality might be that the village shop has closed down, the pub is under threat, and the council doesn't grip the lanes in and out of the village during the winter, leaving people stranded or unable to get home. Also, the sense of rural isolation, which is not for everyone, doesn't always disappear during the summer months. Midweek, many of the more popular and picturesque places can, I'm afraid, be ghost villages, as the weekenders return to London or other cities for their working week, only returning for the following weekend to spend their time in areas like the Cotswolds or the Dales. But for those who don't plan to use their property solely as a rural getaway, a village's local amenities, as well as its accessibility, are likely to figure high. A country pub often is on the priority list as well. The estate agent went on to say, for some homeowners, a friendly local pub where they can have a pint before lunch on a Sunday is all important. Naturally, the atmosphere is as important as the brew. Well, in our case, we enjoy both. It's often the camaraderie that's the biggest draw, though. Another consideration would be schooling. Being in the catchment area for a good school often rates highly when people are looking for the perfect village, although a village hall for bridge groups and amateur dramatics or even badminton are also excellent for fostering that sense of community. But what constitutes the quintessential village is ultimately down to the individual. What makes Redbourn a good place for you, I wonder? Well, in my view, the best British villages have their own identity, a large enough population to sustain the local amenities, and of course woodland and pretty streams and all those aesthetic things you'd hope for in the quintessential English countryside. We are hugely fortunate, I believe, to live in Redbourn today. It's small enough to provide a strong sense of community, and yet large enough to sustain a wide range of activities and organisations, even if some of those can't run in the usual way at the moment. I've always felt from day one of being privileged to live here that Redbourn has punched above its weight. I want to share a quote with you from my favourite author, G.K. Chesterton, who says this, and with apologies for the non-inclusive language: the man who lives in a small community lives in a much larger world. He knows much more of the fierce variety and uncompromising divergences of men. In a large community, he can choose our companions. In a small community, our companions are chosen for us. Thus, in all extensive and highly civilized society, groups come into existence founded upon sympathy and shut out the real world more sharply than the gates of a monastery. There is nothing really narrow about the clan. The thing which is really narrow is the clique. What I love about Redbourn is the lack of cliques and the sense that all can belong. It isn't a village where you have to have been here for 30 years before people will speak to you and accept you, especially so if you're willing to join in and make a contribution. Sometimes we just need to have the courage to venture out and find people and introduce ourselves and see what we can get involved in. And on that note, I'll finish with another quotation from G.K. Chesterton. He says this: "The intrepid explorer is not the one who goes off to distant lands and far-off places, but climbs over his fence and meets his neighbour."
Thank you, Will. That's a wonderful quote at the end there, isn't it? Which really elegantly summarises what you were saying.
No, I love it. I just think that's great. And one of the lovely things that we've seen in the last few months has been the way that people have popped their head over the garden fence and have knocked on a door of a neighbour and said, "Are you okay? Can I do anything? How can I help?" And in some cases, to our shame, people that we haven't known as well as we ought to have done. That I hope some of that will be part of the lasting legacy from this really difficult last 6 months or so.
Yes, and I don't know about you, I have a very strong sense that it will. I think the village has come together in the most wonderful way, and we've got such a great community here, and so many people have interacted with new people that they didn't know before and so on. I'm really hoping that it'll stay. Of course, it's wonderful anyway, but it's even more wonderful than it was, if that was possible.
Yeah, I agree, Simon, and I think there's always a danger in any organisation or any place that people rest on their laurels. But you know, all the things that make Redbourn such a lovely place to live for many people are things that we have to continue to work on. They're not going to be preserved for all time, but actually each and every one of us all the way has to continue to work at those things, or gradually over time they erode and slip and so on. But what I've seen has just been so inspiring and encouraging, and a real sort of sense of wanting to contribute and wanting to reach out and help and be positive and supportive of others. And I'm confident that we won't lose that. That will be a lasting legacy for all who call Redbourn their home at the moment.
Absolutely, and I'm confident too. So, Will,
Great.
Thank you as always. I think you said you've got to rush off to a very
I'm going to slide off, and I'm really sorry to miss Celine because she's brilliant, and she'll have some really interesting things to share this morning. So I hope people really enjoy it. I know they will.
Well, thank you, Will. Well, good luck. Good luck. Enjoy your Zoom call. We
Thanks.
look forward to hearing from you next week.
Take care, yeah. Cheers.
Thank you,
Bye.
Will. Cheerio. So, Celine, good morning again.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for your patience and letting Will go first today.
That's okay. That was wonderful to hear. Probably haven't got that much to add after that.
Absolutely. No, Will, of course, you've done an absolutely wonderful thing, haven't you? So let's talk about the wonderful thing you did. You set up you sort of got involved in setting up the volunteering group. Can you tell us what inspired you to do that and how it all began?
Well, it was back in March, and the thing is, what I really wanted to put across is, I was the first one to actually put a message and set it up. However, as Will mentioned, Redbourn is such a great village. I'm sure if it had not been me, it would have been somebody else, and everybody, it's my name on the, as the person who created it, but it would not be anything if it had not been for the whole community. So I really want to put that across first and foremost. But personally, it started back in March when unfortunately, one of my aunties died because she caught the virus in France, and they were a couple of weeks ahead of us. And I got upset, and I drank a couple of glasses of wine, and one thing led to another. Your best idea always come up after a couple of glasses of wine. I just thought, at the time, it was that everybody, all you could hear on the radio was doom and gloom, and everybody, just going for toilet paper in the supermarket aisle, and I just thought, well, Redbourn is so much better than that, and I just put a little message on Redbourn network on Facebook, and then I went to sleep. Actually, by that time I had just had enough of the day. So I went back to sleep, and I thought, I was expecting in the morning when I remember what I'd done. I went back and I was expecting about 5-10 people that I helped as well. However, I think by the time I woke up at 8 in the morning, it was already 150 people. I said,
wow.
Yes, I will help. And then it snowballed, and then it became, eventually, we had 500, and, all the people that were not on Facebook, so more than that. But it did really snowball, and that's how it started.
Wow. And by the way, I love the fact that you said if you hadn't done it, somebody else would have done. And I'm sure you're right. But you did do it, and so we all obviously thank you for that. So when you saw all these names the following morning, you probably thought, oh my goodness me, what do I do now? So what did you do? What did you do then?
Because I panicked.
Yeah.
I did that. Well, then it kind of, and again, it's like it shows that how Redbourn people work together. I was thinking, okay, well now I've got to actually be much more organised. Initially, it'll be like a group of, 10 people, 20 max on WhatsApp somehow. So I had to kind of get organised, and then there were people like just putting suggestion, and few people I said, do you know about, have you talked to Sally Bartlett of the care group? Because I know they're doing a lot already. So, and then people mentioned Will as well with the church, and there were a few others like that. So it was a case of meeting all together. And for my part, I did create the Redbourn Coronavirus Volunteer on Facebook. So that was, my part of it at the table. But then we met with all those people, Sally and Will, and people, from the health centre. So it was really like a real community effort. And we met initially twice a week, and then after, when he kind of eased down a bit, like twice a week, and then once a week. And it was just pulling together all our resources, and we created street WhatsApp, and the Redbourn care group phone number became like and still is the central hub for assisting people in the village. So it's a really simple system, and we kind of leafleted the whole of Redbourn. We put it across different social media, but leaflet was really important because obviously the more the people like maybe like older generation, people that do not automatically have access to social medias, or part of one of the most vulnerable, because that's why they could not access help in the first place. So it was really important to leaflet everybody, to let them know that whatever their needs were, they could just call the Redbourn Care Group number, and their help will be on their way. So people just had to call the number, and then it was filtered by the Redbourn Care Group, and then we did put the message on WhatsApp, on the street WhatsApp, and said there's somebody in your street that needs help, who can help. And it did work like that, and it just worked beautifully.
Brilliant. I mean, it's just such a fantastic operation that you pulled together so quickly. Did you find you managed to get a volunteer for every single road, or was the whole village covered?
Yes, absolutely, which was absolutely amazing. Street that never heard about, and that's what Will said. Like that kind of that crisis could have been one of the hardest times for a village, but actually everything's been turned into such a positive experience because you heard about people that you never heard of. It's been an amazing opportunity to actually discover people and just finding out about things that you could never have found out before.
Sure, and it sounds, Celine, as if it's actually exceeded your expectations. Has what came out of it been more than you thought it would when you put that first Facebook message on?
Absolutely, yes. So I said, for me it was going to be 10, 20 people at most. Well, the crisis isn't finished, unfortunately, and we're still going, and it's still, we're still, helping people. And when I say we, that would be one of the legacy. So yeah, it exceeded what I could ever have imagined when I put that little message on Facebook. However, what is really important is the legacy of that initiative, because we worked really closely with the Redbourn Care Group, and I can only speak of myself when I say actually I heard about the Redbourn Care Group before the crisis, but for me, possibly because there was the word care and you associate care with maybe the care homes. For me, the care group was only for older generation. As I found out, the care group is for everybody in Redbourn, and we had a lot of our volunteers actually now signed up for the Redbourn Care Group as kind of full-time volunteers, and that's one of the legacy for me. It's just like, if that will live on in the village, and the Redbourn Care Group needs a lot of volunteers because people still need our help now, and that's what's great about it. Whatever will happen with the coronavirus and the crisis, we still have that, and that's what Will mentioned earlier. And I think that's why it was saying as well, Redbourn is the best village anyone could ever wish to live in, because we've got that community, and that's priceless.
Yes, it is extraordinarily nice, isn't it? I just want to ask you a couple more questions, Selena, about the legacy. So, what do you hope will? We obviously none of us knows the sort of progress of the virus or the regress of it, and how that will pan out in the future. But do you have any particular hopes for how the volunteering group might sort of continue?
Yes. So I've myself signed up now to the Redbourn to be a volunteer for the Redbourn Care Group, and as I've mentioned before, the Redbourn Care Group is just an invaluable thing to have in our village, because nobody is left behind because of them. Anyone can access help, and it can be anything. It can be a phone call if they're still lonely. It can be picking up a prescription. It can be shopping. It's a lot of things. It's much more than that. And the Redbourn Care Group needs volunteers, and it can be like 1 hour in a month. It can be 1 hour every day. You only need to sign up, because if people don't sign up as they're properly, because obviously they bypassed the forms for the crisis, because we needed people there and then. But if they don't do that properly, they would be at risk of losing their charitable status, and that can't happen. So yes, I would say for that we can't rest on our laurels and say, oh, we were great during the coronavirus crisis. Redbourn is much better than that. We can carry on doing that, and for that to happen, people, please sign up and be a volunteer for the Redbourn Care Group.
I'm sure people will, Celine. Well, listen, I've got to ask you about the Tour de France, but just before I do, one final thing. Do you have any sort of one last message for all our listeners? Obviously, you've encouraged people to sign up, but is there any sort of last message you'd like to give out to the listeners today?
Yeah, it's a massive thank you to everybody, because, again, that's what Will said earlier, Redbourn has punchable above his weight. We've massively done that. We should all be proud and really happy to live in Redbourn. nowhere else I would rather live. So it's a massive thank you. That's all I'd like to say.
Well, Celine, that's wonderful. And a massive thank you back to you from the village, I'm sure, for all the wonderful initiative you took and all your hard work. So thank you too. Now, I did say I'd ask you about the Tour de France. It won't have escaped people's notice, I think, that you've got a French accent, I think I can hear there. But apparently you don't like the Tour de France. How is that possible, Celine?
Well, anyone who knows me knows I'm not massively sporty, and that's probably the understatement of the century.
Okay.
Having said that, it's got a special place in my heart, the Tour de France, because my granddad was a Tour de France fanatic, and every single year during all of my childhood, every single day coming back from school, we were just watching for a couple of hours religiously the Tour de France. So also, I'm not fanatic about sport and cycling. I'm fond of the Tour de France because it reminds me of my beloved granddad. So, yeah. So, no, I can't pretend I'm watching it, Simon. Sorry.
Okay, well, I'll forgive you. But it is really, and for those that don't know, this year is a really, really interesting one, actually. So, there you go. Well, Celine, thank you so much for that. As I said, you've done a wonderful thing, and obviously in conjunction with the rest of the village, we thank you, and we're just delighted to have you here. And it is indeed, as Will and you have said, and lots of people say, it is the most wonderful village. So I'm going to finish today's call now. Thank you for listening, everybody that's listened in. Please remember to spread the word and give us feedback and suggestions. We don't tend to be inundated with suggestions, so if you do have someone that you'd like to hear from or a discussion topic you'd like to hear about, then please let us know. And as Celine has said, the Redbourn Care Group do a fantastic job. Let me remind you of the number, which I always do to end the call, 794-550. That's 794-550. Have a lovely day, everybody. Enjoy this beautiful autumn weather. Thank you. Stay safe, and if you haven't done it yet, watch the Tour de France. Thank you very much, and we'll catch up with you next week.